Welcome to this session. My name is Arjun. I am a product manager in OneDrive, specifically on OneDrive Web, and I'm excited about leading all things Copilot in OneDrive, starting with web.
I'm Ben Trulev. I'm a design partner working on OneDrive in Copilot. I've got a few other duties as well, but I'm all Copilot today, all the time.
We're very excited that you're here, and I know most of you have heard about Copilot is coming to OneDrive, and Copilot is coming to OneDrive, and Copilot will be available in your files very soon. And I know you've seen videos, you've seen a lot of demos talk about it, but I know you want to see it live in action, and this is the session for it. And you heard it right. It is going to be a live code demo. If things go amazingly well, you can thank Ben and I. If things go sideways, there are my team members who are working on this. I won't point at them right now, but you'll hear about it. I know.
Yeah.
No, but it's gonna be a great session, because we hope by the end of this session you get an idea about what is it that Copilot can uniquely do for you when it comes to files. I think that's the burning question that I hope we are able to answer for you at the end of this session. We also, like I said, we want to do a live code demo. And really in that demo, the focus is going to be how would people like Ben and I or you use Copilot in your day-to-day life. So the scenarios that we have for you are pretty much how I use Copilot on a daily basis. So I hope it's useful and relevant. And we'll have some time at the end of the session for Q&A. All right, so let's get started. I do want to start with our mission, which is to empower every organization and every person to achieve more. And honestly, when I joined Microsoft, it was the achieve more part of this mission that really, really spoke to me. Now, what's fascinating is that I honestly believe Copilot is the best representation and manifestation of this idea and of this vision, because Copilot truly enables you to achieve more. And you don't have to take my word for it. This is what our customers are talking about, right? So 68% said Copilot improved the quality of their work. 70% said Copilot actually made them more productive. And 77% said they cannot live without Copilot. And really, it's our hope that by the end of this session, you fall in that 77% category. But really, at the heart of it, we want you to know and understand that Copilot is an AI that you can trust. I know there are lots of questions that we've got, in the booth, in other sessions about concerns, security concerns around Copilot. And we want to make it very clear that this is AI that you can trust. What does this mean? First of all, your data is your data. Copilot will never give you an answer from a file that you don't have access to. I will repeat that again. Copilot will not give you an answer on a file that you don't have access to. So if you're getting an answer from Copilot, it's already a file that you have access to, and you have access to the content of that file. We also do not use the data that you have, and we don't actually use the prompts or the suggestion pills or any interaction that you have with Copilot to train our model. We don't do that, and we won't do it. And your data is protected by the most comprehensive security and compliance mechanisms that we have. But I know what you all have in your mind right now is Copilot's amazing, it's great. But how can Copilot help me achieve more and get more out of OneDrive? And there are two things that are very clear when I personally think about this question. One is OneDrive is the home of all your files. It's the home for the content that matters most to you. And two, files are how we get most of our work done today. But what's also true is that the number of files we get shaped today is just overwhelming, right? And a lot of times we're spending so much time reading through these documents, reading through the edits made in these documents, the comments that have been added to these documents, And what ends up happening is that you are spending more time and more work to help you get prepped before you start working on the actual work, right? It's more about, let me get through all these documents that I need to read. Let me understand the edits. Let me understand all the context. And then I will start working on that presentation, that document that I really need to write, right? That's pretty much the central problem that we're trying to solve with Copilot in OneDrive. And essentially, that's our hope. We hope Copilot in OneDrive enables you to spend less time doing the work to get your work done. Really, it's as simple as that. And if I were to break it down into how we hope to achieve this, it comes down to 4 things. We want to make it absolutely easy for you to get answers on your content. And you will see it says solved search over here. What do I mean by that? It really comes down to, if you're searching for a file, essentially what you're searching for is some information that's embedded in that file, right? Searching for files is often the start of that journey. You're looking for, a data point, you're looking for a critical piece of information. What we want to enable with Copilot in OneDrive is that you don't have to open these files to get the answer. If Copilot is your intelligent AI assistant, it should be able to give you answers to the content that's already stored in your OneDrive without you having to even open it. So that will save you a lot of that busy work, right? Second, we want Copilot to help you stay on top of your files. We want Copilot to be your catch-up assistant, whether it's summarizing lengthy documents before a meeting, or even proactive catch-up, right? Imagine you're at this conference, you go back. Could you ask Copilot in OneDrive, hey, catch me up? And could it actually summarize all the files that were recently shared with you? Could it summarize edits made to the document that you were working on before you left for this conference? Could it summarize the @mentions in the documents? That would be a pretty useful scenario, right? We also wanted to take away the headache around organization, right? The question that I ask myself is, what does organization mean in a world where you have an AI assistant at your beck and call? And there are lots of ways in which Copilot can actually help you stay on top of your content. It could be automating organization, or even actually removing the need for organization. It could also be around cleanup, right? Help me clean up files that I actually don't use. Help me, sorry?
Duplicates.
Duplicates, exactly, right? So again, thinking about automating organization. And then the last one is helping you create. A lot of you don't think about creation in OneDrive, but if OneDrive is the home of all your files, and Copilot is that intelligent assistant, wouldn't it be amazing if it can take the existing content in your files and then make new content on top of it? That would be amazing. And really, this is what it all comes down to. We want Copilot to help you discover the answers buried in your files. We want it to help you stay on top of your files and be your catch-up assistant. We want it to help you stay organized, and we want it to help you create amazing documents. And if we are able to do that, we will banish the busy work, right? And that's really what it comes down to. But we also know that this is a paradigm shift, right? This is not the way in which you work today. And change is always scary. Change is always, you're always hesitant when it comes to new things that are introduced in a product that you love and care about, or in a workflow that you've come to, make a reality. So we are taking a lot of care, a lot of effort into designing a Copilot experience in OneDrive that feels natural, it feels intuitive, it feels integrated. And to talk more about that, I'm going to hand off to Ben. And Ben, over to you. Take us through how you're designing a Copilot-enabled OneDrive.
All right. One thing that you got to know about designers is, to be worth their salt, they need to design against principles. And there were 4 principles that we looked at and that we followed when we were thinking about these experiences. Oops, that was the pointer. One of them is, Copilot, you're writing, right? So solving writer's block. Like Arjun said, it's a very new experience. It's a new intern, right? And you don't just cold introduce someone and let people go ahead and talk. So we want to be able to give people cues and make it easy for people to get started talking with Copilot and getting their stuff done and knowing their capabilities. So we also found this out in research, thanks to our partner, Tony Saylor. So second is like one of my favorites. We want to transcend the traditional UI, the traditional GUI. And what I mean by that is like going through different file structures and columns and command bars and right clicks and left navigations. That's a lot of drudgery. That's a lot of clicks. We used to count mouse clicks. But with this new UI, with just a turn of a phrase or a click of a button, we can do like starships do and fold space, or we're folding GUI just like they fold space, to like zap you through all those layers of cruft to get to the stuff that you really want to get done. And third, we want to emphasize that this is one Copilot experience. There's a huge number of designers working on Copilot today, and we're a tight-knit community, and we're working very hard to make sure that if you're familiar with Copilot in Word or in Teams, for example, those same patterns will serve you well when you're in OneDrive. And then last, and on that similar note, we want to add value where you're used to finding value. We want to put that type of assistance in the appropriate places where assistance is needed. Like, for example, the sharing summaries that some of you may have seen earlier, or on every file, for example. You want that right then and there so you can act on those files. Or search, for example, like for solving search in the search pane. And with that, I sent out a poll, and I think 4 of you all unanimously voted that we should do a live demo. So Arjun is going to take it away, and let's give a big hand for him because he's a brave man. You're seeing it hot, you're seeing it fresh.
Like I said, this is my actual OneDrive account. So I know you all saw Michaela's keynote. And Michaela, if you could actually get up and shout the instructions again for me. If you see something, I'm going to point somewhere, and then like you exactly. One of the principles that Ben talked about was, and I think that's very close to my heart, and what I appreciate about using Copilot in my day-to-day life is it's actually integrated into the way I work. It's integrated into my workflows. I start my day on OneDrive Home because that's what allows me to get to the files that I care about, that are important to me, are contextual for the task for that day, right? I'm a big fan of the For You strip because it already has a level of intelligence in which it surfaces the files that are important and contextual for, let's say, in upcoming meetings, or someone shared a document with me that's important, again, for a discussion that we're having, and so on and so forth. And the first thing you will see is that we have a new summarize button in For You cart. And this is an actual document that my amazing colleague Irfan shared with all of us before we were coming to this conference, right? And I actually used this exact scenario 2 days before I was flying here because I wanted to understand what is it that I want to get up to speed on. So I'm going to show you how easy it is now for you to see a file in OneDrive in For You, and you go and think to yourself, this is actually a relevant document, but what would have taken you, let's say, minutes in clicking the file, opening the file, reading through the document, and getting to know what that file entails. Now what you can do is you can click on Summarize, and it will open up Copilot, and it will summarize this file for you. This is where I need some like elevator music as it's generating the response. Awesome. So you can see it already synthesizes the important bits for me to know. It talks about what the sessions and speakers are. It talks about Copilot in OneDrive. It talks about productivity enhancements. It talks about the offline mode, which I know got a huge cheer. It talks about a consistent experience, and so on and so forth. This is already very helpful for me, right? But let's imagine I wanted to ask it a question. Imagine if I said, hey, I'm actually presenting a session on Copilot I can type in OneDrive, what should I talk about? Now, it's not just about summarization, because summarization is only the start of this journey, right? And of course, you have other questions that you want to ask Copilot. And this is how easy it is to get started and then ask a follow-up question. What I also want to draw your attention as it prepares a response is that this conversation is happening only on this file. And we want to make it extremely easy for you to understand that through UX principles, that this conversation is scoped to this file. So you will see over here in the chat box, it says, ask a question about the file name. You will also see at the top of the page where you have some helpful starter prompts. It will always tell you, how can I help you with, again, the file name, right? So it's very clear that the conversation you're having right now, at this very moment, is about this document. All right, so let's read what it said. It said, as you prepare for your session on Copilot in OneDrive, introduce it, features and capabilities, talk about summaries, talk about Q&A, talk about sharing summaries, user feedback, responsible AI, no limitations. Maybe I used some of it to prepare for this session, maybe not. We'll keep that a secret. But again, how easy was it for me to discover a relevant file in For You, start a conversation, get up to speed on what this file is about, and then ask a follow-up question for clarification. That's it, right? You didn't have to go anywhere else to kickstart this session. It was available for you when you needed it, right there at your fingertips. And that's a principle you will see us employing time and time again when it comes to integrating Copilot in OneDrive. We want it to be natural, integrated, and intuitive. So another way we're thinking about that is we are adding a new Copilot button on every file in your OneDrive, right? And as you hover over a file, you see this new Copilot button, and it really is as easy as clicking on this button and opening up what we call hero actions, right? You will see in follow-up slides as Ben talks about, what's in preview and what we're previewing and what's coming next, that we want to make this experience even more delightful and even more beautiful. But right now, what these hero actions do is it immediately starts a conversation based on the action that you chose. So I chose summarization in For You, and it automatically summarized the file. Again, on this document, if you selected summarization again, it would summarize the file again, and so on and so forth. And as we add more capabilities, you will see this menu getting updated. So I've already talked about summarization, but let me show you another helpful scenario, which is creating an FAQ. And this actually, again, a scenario that I used before coming to this session. You heard Jeff talk about the work trend index and all the data that our customers are talking about when it comes to how much they love Copilot. And I wanted to actually be prepped for that. So again, this PDF is actually a long PDF. I'll show you after the session if you want to come and ask me questions. If I wanted to create an FAQ on this by myself, it would have taken me hours. But now I can just click on this button, ask it to create an FAQ, and let's see what Copilot comes back with. And again, you would even see as it's preparing the answer, it says combing through work trend index. We want to make it very visible to anyone working with Copilot to understand exactly what it's working on at any given point in time. All right, so it says based on the context, authored by me, here's a draft FAQ, what's the work trend index? It sorts through all the helpful data and compiles a very useful FAQ for me. Now, as it generates a response, again, I want to draw your attention to a couple of things. First of all, this chat pane is trackable, right? So if you have text that is, overlong and you want to have more reading space, of course, you can drag it, maximize it, minimize it, all of that. The other thing that I want to draw your attention to is the reference. Every output that Copilot gives you will come with a reference so that you know exactly what was behind its reasoning and what was behind its scope, right? You can copy this response. You also see this sensitivity label, right? Again, going back to our security and compliance and privacy controls, this is what we were talking about. So this label gets generated based on the sensitivity label that's applied on the document that Copilot is working on. So again, it's a helpful reminder to folks who are working with these sensitive files, that the information that you're getting from a sensitive document is also sensitive, right? So be careful with it. All right, I like this FAQ, but the one thing I wanna, if there's one takeaway from this session is, please talk to your Copilot. It's like a colleague, right? So if you've asked it for something and you think it could have done a better job, or if you think, hey, actually I want to change this and I want you to think about something else, please talk to it, right? And you can make it fun. So imagine if I found this to be, it's too boring for this amazing audience. If I could say something like, update the FAQ in the style of a podcast. And this is an example that my amazing engineering partners gave me. And I will say add lots of emojis. All right. Let's see what Copilot comes back with. Again, so it says combing through work trend index, making very clear what it's reasoning over. And let's see how it is able to update this seemingly boring FAQ into an exciting podcast script, right? So welcome to the Work Trend Index podcast, right? What's the Work Trend Index all about? It's amazing, actually. I'm going to give this to Stephen for his next Sync Up podcast, right? Awesome. I wanted to show one more thing, and then I can move on to the next scenario. The other thing that we want to draw your attention to are the questions that you see at the bottom. This is what we call suggestion pills. And really what this is, it's Copilot's way of prompting you, right? I've talked about this is a new paradigm of work, right? Not everyone is a natural prompter. We don't know what we could ask it. So the entire interface is actually, it's there to help you. So I showed you the starter prompts at the top of the page as you start a new session. Of course, these are always there to help you out. But after you've started asking a question and after you've had a conversation with a file, Copilot will actually suggest more questions that you can ask it. And it's as simple as clicking on this and continuing this conversation. All right. I now want to switch focus on one of my favorite Copilot scenarios. So I'm sure you've seen this file in my OneDrive and you're wondering what this is. What is best beans? Before I joined Microsoft, I used to be a brand manager for Heinz, so I know all the secrets about Heinz baked beans and ketchup. So if they're fans, come back and ask me questions on it. But this is one of my favorite scenarios, right? I've talked about, would it be amazing if Copilot could actually give you answers on the content without you having to open that file? And this scenario is something that I use very frequently. So let's imagine that I have a meeting with my senior leadership team, and there was a figure, in this, let's say, long Excel, spreadsheet or this document, and I just wanted to double check something before I enter that meeting. All I will do is click on the Copilot button again, ask a question. And first of all, you see how the chat input box, this text, got automatically updated. It said, ask a question about best bean sales overview, right? Again, emphasizing what it's working on. So what if I wanted to ask it, what were the sales in Mexico in November? It's going to work on the request. And there is a thing that I remember reading this report a while ago, And I remember there was something in November that was fishy. Maybe the sales declined. I'm not sure why, and I'm not sure of the exact number. So I hope Copilot can actually help me understand that context, right? So first of all, it gave me the exact number that I was looking for. The sales in Mexico for November were 150,000 units. And then it actually gave me the supporting text that I was looking for, and I had a hunch about it. The decline in sales during this month was attributed to a global supply chain disruption, which impacted various sectors, so on and so forth, right? Now, for all of you suspicious minds thinking, Arjun, you've hard-coded this. There is no way that Copilot did that. I'm going to click on the reference again, because that's how Copilot is able to tell me what it referenced. And let's see, Mexico, November, 150,000. All right? So that matches up. Now let's see. So it says, to address these issues, business and policy makers actually implemented strategic measures. These efforts led to a recovery in sales starting December. Awesome. What would be your next logical question? What were the sales in December? All right? So let's say I ask it, what were the sales in Mexico after November? And let's see what it comes back with. And we're working on making this response time even faster, right? So like this is still in dog food. This is not made generally available. So this response is going to get very, very fast. All right, so the sales in Mexico for best beans after November was, so December was 150, 175, 300,000, and in March was a further increase of 350,000, right? Now, this is already great information because I didn't open the file. I got the first answer I was looking for. I got the answer to a question that would be my natural follow-up. All right, if sales decline, what happened afterwards? And imagine if I was presenting this in a senior leadership, and if I was thinking about, what if the sales trend continued? What could be the sales, let's say, 6 months after a specific month? So this was a long prompt, so I'm just going to copy, this prompt. And what I'm asking it to do, by the way, this doesn't exist in the document, right? The document goes until Feb, I believe. And what I want to ask it now is a very complicated question. So I'm saying, if sales continue with this trend, what will sales be 6 months after Feb? And let's see if Copilot is actually able to help me get a sense of this. All right. There we go. November was this, December was that. Assuming the sales growth and trend continues at the same rate, we can estimate, however, are subject to various factors. So it did not answer the question. But like I said, please continue talking to your Copilot. I will say it's okay to be speculative. Did I spell that correctly? Please give me the best estimate for projected sales 6 months after Feb 2024. So I'm prompting it further, right? Let's see if Copilot is able to understand that, yeah, it is speculative, but maybe I can help out. All right, it's thinking. There it is. So it's calculating the month-over-month growth rates. So 17% was December over November. Jan over December was 72%. Calculating the average. Apply the average growth. Now, that's fantastic. Therefore, I know. All right.
Intern.
This was, like I said, a very real-world example, right? Think of the many times that you were running late for a meeting. you want to double check something. But as you're conversing with Copilot, it's natural for you to have follow-up questions, right? And that's the beauty of conversational AI. You can actually, once it's grounded, once you have an understanding of what it's talking about, you can keep the conversation going, right? All right, let's switch gears and talk about multiple files. I've shown you Q&A summarization on a single file, but of course, OneDrive doesn't have just one file. You work with multiple files. So I want to talk about a couple of, again, scenarios that I constantly use. One is, I want to show one thing, which I find is very cool. As I select and invoke Copilot, you will see it's saying, ask a question about this file. If I select 2, it changes to ask a question about these files, and you will also see the starter prompts were changed. Again, it always has contextual understanding of what you're doing in your OneDrive UX. And to me, this integration of Copilot in OneDrive is what sets it really apart, right? You already have your files in this beautiful interface. As you discover these files, there might be questions that pop in your head, and all you got to do is select the files, open Copilot, and you're able to have this intelligent conversation. So one thing I wanted to do was, and again, I do this very frequently, is to summarize multiple files. I know I got a lot of questions when we showed the compare files video, and they were like, you asked Copilot to compare files. Could I actually give it detailed instructions on how I wanted to create a table, what I wanted to show, what I don't want it to show? Well, here's an example. So what I'm doing is I'm asking you to summarize these files in the table view. I love table views. It's just easy to look at and comprehend. And I'm being very specific. I'm saying for each file, add a column for a single sentence summary and add another column for the main takeaway from each file, right? So let's see what Copilot comes back with. And this is going to be a little slower, at least for now, because it's working with multiple files. But let's give it a minute. All right. So here's a summarized table view of the requested files. And remember, I asked it to give me a single line summary for each file, which it did. It gave me the main takeaway from each file, and so on and so forth, right? And again, the references are always there for you to double check where it's getting its information from, and you will see it checks out. You will also see that the label has changed because these files contain sensitive information, right? So you see that it's confidential, just so that people interacting with Copilot know that this output is also sensitive and confidential. Now, again, I want to follow this up because it's great. It's about, annual report, my quarterly goals, the 5-year vision. We've all been in scenarios where we've been asked to present an outline or a presentation for what does the 5-year vision look like, right? So I have the right files with me, and now I understand what each file is about. I understand the main takeaway. Could I follow it up by asking Copilot, hey, this is great. Now help me create an outline of a presentation based on these documents. And again, I'm being very specific. So I'm saying, keep in mind, I'll be presenting to an executive audience, right? And let's see what Copilot comes back with. And I would urge you to be descriptive, right? And I think that's the beauty of the model that we are working with. We're working through hero actions like summarization and FAQ, and you will see file comparison, which are quick and they're delivered inline, right? But when you want to have a more detailed conversation, the chat pane is always there for you to have a more advanced and a more customized conversation. So let's see what it gave as an output. So based on the documents provided, here's an outline for your presentation, introduction, financial performance. It actually talks about where to get what information from, international expansion, and so on and so forth, right? Again, this is fantastic. I've already got a head start on this work that I had to do. All I did was select the 3 files that I found to be relevant and contextual, and I asked Copilot to help me create an outline. I'm pretty sure the question on everyone's mind is, Arjun, wouldn't it be great if you just created the damn presentation for me as well? Yes, and we're working on that. It will be available very soon. But again, even out of the box, this is pretty powerful, right? All I did was, I think I must have taken 5 minutes to demo this. I already got awareness of the 3 documents, and then I was able to leverage those 3 documents and create an outline of a new document. It's amazing what Copilot is able to do. All right. So I've shown you summarization, I've shown you FAQs, I've shown you Q&A, multiple files. Let's go and look at one of my favorite examples, which is file comparison. All right. I'm going to select the 2 files. So these were dummy files that I created for a kitchen remodeling project, but this could be any statement of work. It could be any contract. It could be, 2 versions of a file. It could be so many scenarios in which you actually want to understand what are the meaningful differences between these 2 files. So again, I select the files, I invoke Copilot, and this time I'm actually going to click one of the starter prompts where it says compare the differences between these files. But I'm going to actually add in a table view because, like I said, I love tables. And let's see what Copilot is able to come back. Again, what you would notice is I did not give it any further parameters, right? In the previous example, I was very clear about summarize it in a table view, but please add these columns, right? But over here, I just asked it to summarize it for me. And I see it's got some weird formatting, so I'm just going to make this a little easier to read. So let's see. It's able to give me information on the company, location, scope, budget, duration, who's the project manager, team, payment terms. And this is amazing. Like, it also added a row for discount offer and tells me no discount offer was mentioned in the first one. And there was a 10% discount in the second one. And you all saw the prompt that I gave. I didn't ask it to say, hey, help me understand if this is better, or help me understand if this offers a discount. All I said to it was compare the differences between these files. And what it was able to do was go through these files, understand what's important, and then show you that relevant information, again, without opening these files. But let's say if I wanted to actually change this and I said, I actually don't need the warranty row. Also, can you add the discount row to budget? Did I have a typo? All right, let's see. All right, so based on your request, here's the updated comparison. All right, so you already see budget has now a 10% discount for referrals, and it was able to remove the warranty row for me. Again, just want to demonstrate how comprehensive and powerful this is. Right? Think 5 years ago, if someone told you, hey, you'd be able to have this natural conversation with files and just ask it to do stuff for you. I don't know. I would say you were drinking the same thing I was drinking when I agreed to do this live demo. All right. Now I want to show you the thing that I'm not supposed to show, but oh well. Copilot in OneDrive will not just work on documents like spreadsheets and Word documents and presentations. It will also be multimodal. What that means is it will work on images stored in your OneDrive, and very soon it will also work on meeting recordings, right? So I know we all have a lot of meeting recordings in a OneDrive, and I can't wait till the moment that I'm able to just click on those meeting recordings and say, summarize or recap this meeting for me. But again, this is such a relevant example, right? We've all been in amazing brainstorming sessions where we scribble a lot of notes, and at the end of it, It's someone's job to transcribe those notes and then figure out what the action items are and so on and so forth, right? Now, I'm showing you the amazing file viewer that you've seen and you've all appreciated. And again, Copilot is available at your beck and call with just one click. And what I wanted to do now is I actually want to ask it to create action items from the notes in this image. And let's see what it comes back with. All right, based on the notes in whiteboard, here are the action items. Structure analysis, structure identification, 10 pointers. Again, this would have taken someone at least 30, 40 minutes, and it was able to do that in less than a minute. And the last thing I want to show you is, hey, Arjun, it works on one image, but what if it could work on multiple images? Won't that be amazing? All right. Let me just show you what these images are before I show you what Copilot is able to do on it, right? So I'm just going to cycle through them and just remember what you saw. Some of us have an idea what these are, some don't.
Now you're really pushing it.
Yes.
Are you sure?
Let's push it. All right, so now I'm going to select these 3 images and then ask Copilot to compare these images. And look at my prompt. I'm asking it to tell me what the part is and what's wrong with it. All right. All right, it's looking for the images. All right. Look at that. It was able to tell you what the part was, what's the issue. So the tire is flat and deflated. The second one is a bearing. The bearing appears to be worn out or damaged. Bearing housing, there is evidence of leakage around the bearing housing. How cool is that? Now, I wanted to draw your attention to another scenario that gets unlocked with this. I unfortunately could not get the files to show you that. But if you work in branding, or if you work with images and text files, what's stopping you from actually pointing to an image, pointing to a document and say, hey, does this image meet our company's brand guidelines? Simple, right? And Copilot will be able to do that for you. All right, that's all I have to show in terms of demo. I hope you all saw the power of what Copilot can unlock for you. And I want to hand it off to Ben again to show you not just to recap what you just saw, but even more improvements we're adding to the experiences you saw, and even more amazing features that we are launching very soon. And then we'll close the session out with some Q&A. All right, so Ben, I'm just going to give it back to you.
Let's give him a hand. Nice work. Yeah, he just kept walking on that tightrope. I was just amazed. All right, so he showed some very, very early, very, very hot code. And I'm going to go ahead and go back through the videos to remind you all what ultimately this is going to look like. So we're going to do kind of a progressive disclosure where we'll just have a dialogue experience here. So you can have like a focused experience. So if you're just looking for that content, you'll be able to see it, you'll be able to get it, and get in and get out. So that's for summary. So asking questions without opening files. So this is where you go ahead and ask Copilot. And just like Arjun had done, it answers the questions. And then, of course, there's that multi-scenario comparison where, once again, we've got the dedicated dialogue that can boot you out to that larger open experience where you can also leverage teaching prompts. So those prompts up at the top were called teaching prompts, and so they populate the text area, so then you can add on and modify those things. The idea is so you can learn to do prompts, unlike our expert here, who's been doing it for some time. All right, and then once again, sharing with summary. So that was earlier in our collab at 2 o'clock, our collab session. And once again, that's inline. So this is also playing off of our principle of being where your familiar paths are at. All right, so now I'm going to just take a little walkthrough of some things that are coming up. You know, of course, Arjun did a spoiler, and yes, images are files, and we're going to be able to work on images, so summarizing images and comparing images. And then this is like actually my personal favorite.
Yeah, I
so
love this feature.
Imagine that you went on vacation or something, or you've joined a new team and you have no idea what's going on. Wouldn't it be great if your little intern had given you a OneDrive digest, for example? So up here, once again, is the OneDrive home, and where you'd expect to find things to catch you up, it's up there in the For You cards. There's a Catch Up with Copilot card. And it'll do a little flare to let you know that there's some new intelligence there. If you're to click on Catch Me Up, that's all you need to do. It'll go ahead and do its thinking. And then give you like a small digest of here, this is all the things I need to know to get caught up. Because you don't have the time to read through all the tons of documents and you got a meeting in like 5 minutes. So how's that? Once again, folding space, folding GUI. We're here to bring more power beyond the traditional UI. And then of course, creation. So you might have seen in the keynote where Naomi showed some crazy stuff where she was like combining documents and creating new documents. Well, in OneDrive, it is the perfect place to combine those documents because you're seeing those all. In this case, also, you can transform. So it's a transformative area. So you've got like a Word doc, but you want to convert it to PowerPoint. So we're going to be able to work on a way where you can just hand that right off to PowerPoint, and then Copilot in PowerPoint takes over there. Because Copilot is an expert no matter where you're at. And there's the Copilot pane in PowerPoint. And then also you can convert your summaries. In an earlier meeting we had, someone expressed that, hey, this summary is probably better than the document it's summarized. So what if I want to make a document out of that summary? Well, you can also do that as well. Once again, a handoff to Word, where Word will take over, Word Copilot will take over and help you write that document. All right, so now I'm going to hand it back to Arjun, and he's going to talk about current state of affairs.
All right. I know there are lots of questions around what Copilot supports, what it doesn't support. Let me just add the disclaimer that this is the current state of the world. It's not going to be the permanent state of the world. We are working really hard on a daily basis to make Copilot more powerful and more advanced. But when Copilot in OneDrive becomes available, you will have the ability to do Q&A and comparison and summarization on up to 10 files at a single time. It actually supports most text-based files, documents, presentations, PDFs. I've summarized loops with it, and it's worked fantastically. And support for images and videos coming soon. Share with Summary is available only on Word Online right now and on non-encrypted documents. But again, we're adding support for more file types very soon. And Copilot works for files under 150 MB and 40,000 characters, which is about 35,000 words. But again, we're adding the ability to make it more powerful so that it can actually do Q&A and reasoning on larger files, whether it's the file size or more characters. All right, even though we had an amazing demo, I'm pretty sure this is the slide that is going to be everyone's favorite because you're like, yeah, it's all good, but when is it coming? When can I use it? Yeah. All right, so the good news is that Share with Summary is available right now. If you're a Copilot user, click on a Word document, in the share dialog, you will see the Copilot button. Please try it and give us your feedback. One-click summarization on single and multiple files, FAQs, compare files, and Q&A on your files is coming later this summer. I showed you all of this in OneDrive Web, but the Copilot button and Copilot actions will also be available in document libraries via quick access in your OneDrive Web. So that's also going to be available later this summer. And later this year, we'll have Q&A on images, the catch-up feature that Ben showed, converting summaries into documents, converting a Word document into a presentation, the full Copilot support in document libraries, and more will come later this year. And that's it. That's our session. We do have some time for Q&A. So I have CJ over here who's very graciously accepted to pass the mic around. And if you have a question, raise your hand.
Oh, got one over there.
We'll get it started.
So would I be able to use this? You said that you can reorganize files, right? And I didn't really, maybe I missed it somehow. I'm not quite sure if you did a demo of that, but here's what I'd like to do. I want to look at, say, everything in a SharePoint collection and say, find all my files that have PII or PHI in them. And it shows them to me. And then I say, okay, move all these files into another folder and secure those files. Can this do that?
That's a great question. So for those of you who didn't hear the question, in the SharePoint side, could I ask a general question about, hey, find me all the files with this word or a phrase, and then move these files somewhere else? Let me answer it in two phases. So what I showed you today was Copilot working on a defined scope, right? So on a file that you've selected or on a file on which you did a hero action on, right? We will very soon be adding support for general Copilot actions without file selection in your OneDrive, right? So you could ask it, even without selecting a file, you could ask it questions like, what were the files Ben shared with me recently, right? And it will be able to understand that, right? Right now, it's up to 10 files. Again, we're expanding that support. But the other question, so I hope that answers your first question about Copilot being able to discover files without scoping or grounding. In terms of actually moving the files, we're thinking about it. We're thinking about how Copilot can actually help automate some of the organization tasks. The two schools of thoughts, we've spoken to a lot of customers. There is some apprehension about Copilot actually moving files. So some people want it, some people don't. This is a hard problem to solve. We're working through it, and you will hear more from it.
Clarify something a little bit.
Yeah.
So just so you know, that slide that Arjun brought up with the 4 points, those are our evergreen goals and our scenario areas that we want to actually pursue. So those aren't necessarily the things that we've done yet, but those are things we are working towards. We are training our Copilot to do all those things.
So what languages are supported?
Sorry?
Languages.
Language
support. Yes. We do support a variety of languages, actually. I'm happy to send you the details of the languages that will be supported initially. I believe we have 40 to 50 languages that are currently supported, with additional support coming very soon.
Good. And I have a second question. So about the images, so is any necessary, we need to train in some way for Copilot to being able to identify properly the images? Like, I don't know, in the context of the work, a part number, or things like that. Maybe we are asking about which is this part, this image is representing what product, things like that.
Okay, so if I understand your question correctly, you're asking, do we have to train Copilot to recognize what's in the images? It's a great question. So the example that I showed you was a general search over the internet. But again, the example that I showed you, you could combine a document and an image and say, hey, from this document, get the information and then apply that reasoning over this image.
Thank you.
So you might have a guide to, for example, defects or something that Arjun might have referenced in that previous slide on the parts.
Yeah, actually, very similar question because, for example, I work for a geotechnical engineering firm. And so there's a lot of images, lots of photos that are taken. And so to recognize, for example, landslide, patterns and things like that. I'm just wondering if we can actually use our pre-trained models and bring it into that Copilot and then analyze it with the documentation and procedures and guidelines and measure it all together to get an answer.
That's great feedback. I think, yeah, we'll take that into consideration. Thank you.
I had raised my hand, so I'll just go through. I just wish Copilot can remodel the kitchens too, but we'll maybe leave that for later. I just wanted to follow up on that question. So your examples, you had the OneDrive, which is part of my semantic index, I can work. But how does it work for the files which are shared with me? Let's say in both scenarios where somebody has a Copilot in, let's say in semantic index, and maybe for a scenario where the user might not have it, but I'd be able to do exactly the same, or is it still limited to only my files?
No, so Copilot actually has an understanding of files that are relevant to you. That includes files that, let's say, you've created, so your files, and files that have been shared with you as well. Yes. Right now, what you saw was a very grounded version of Copilot, right? So it's always acting on a file that you've selected, whether it's one or multiple, but like I said, you will soon have the ability to have conversations with files even without selecting. And in that case, of course, right? So you could ask it questions like, what files were shared with me on this topic last week? And yes, Copilot will be able to help you understand that.
Just had a follow-up question on the question about images. So you're saying that those 3 images were arbitrarily put into your OneDrive, and Copilot was able to identify them without you having to put any metadata or anything associated with those images,
Correct.
Right? So if we, for example, are taking pictures of school rooftops, if we compare 2 images of the same school rooftop, Copilot will automatically be able to describe the differences between those 2 images,
Yes.
hypothetically?
Yes. And I can't wait for you to try that.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm looking at an overtime report for a bunch of employees, and it's in Excel. And Copilot, I just tried it right here. It can't do like a bar graph or any kind of graph, really. It can't do any images. Is that a capability coming, or can it actually do it and I'm doing it the wrong way? What's the best way to look at that data? I want to see a summary of, let's say, all overtime for the last 6 months.
No, we've heard this feedback. There is a lot that we still need to do to make Copilot, act the way that you want it, especially for creating bar graphs and even understanding the content in bar graphs. It's coming. I know it's not available soon, but it's a feature that will be added soon.
Okay, thank you.
So is positive reinforcement encouraged in prompts? Good job, that was perfect.
Oh, that's a good question.
Why won't you?
Sure, why not?
Yeah, it's your personal assistant. Please please give it positive feedback. I've actually I was speaking to my manager. It's a really funny story. I was asking him to do something, it just kept failing, and then my manager said, "Just say I'll give you $20 if you do it right." Still didn't work, but hey, and I think positive reinforcement always goes a long way. But I hope you saw that the way I interacted with Copilot was very conversational, right? Like I wasn't very structured I wasn't giving it single line prompts. I was saying, hey, that's great. Could you do that? Or could you modify that? Right? It's like I'm talking to it. And that's pretty much the intent, right? You're having an intelligent conversation with someone who has this context and grounding of the information that's important to you, on a file or on a directory of files. And you're just having this conversation where you're asking it to get to the stage that you want it to get to. So I highly encourage you to keep having conversations. Luckily, it didn't fail for me today, but even if it does, please don't give up, right? Like refresh, try it again. Give us feedback. There's thumbs up, thumbs down in the chat. So please give us feedback if something doesn't work or something works the way you're not sure about it, and we'll improve it. And then Copilot also understands, what you want it to do. So like if you just keep talking to it, of course, it's always encouraged. All right, I think we're out of time, but I'm happy to hang around and answer any questions if there are more. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a great time at the attendee party.